when her mother decided to remarry. Emma, still reeling from her father's loss, found it hard to accept another man in their lives. Emma's journey to independence began with a heart-wrenching farewell. As she stepped into the bustling world of university life, filled with aspirations and dreams, tragedy struck unexpectedly. Her father, a kind-hearted and supportive pillar in her life, passed away after a brief illness. This loss tore through Emma's world like a storm, leaving her to navigate the complexities of adulthood without her guiding star. Her father had always been her rock, offering wisdom and warmth in equal measure. They shared a bond that went beyond mere blood. He was her mentor, her confidant. His sudden departure left a void in Emma's heart, one that seemed impossible to fill. Now she was going to spend her life without her father, who was once her whole world. Emma's relationship with her mother was a mixture of different feelings, understanding, and occasional disagreements. Her mother, a beacon of strength and compassion, had always been Emma's emotional anchor. However, their bond faced a challenge when her mother decided to remarry. Emma, still reeling from her father's loss, found it hard to accept another man in their lives. George, her mother's new husband, was a stark contrast to her father. Emma struggled to connect with him, and a subtle tension simmered beneath the surface of their interactions. Her mother, ever the peacemaker, tried to bridge the gap between her daughter and new husband. She believed that time would heal the rifts and forge a new family dynamic. Emma, out of love and respect for her mother, made efforts to accept George, but their relationship remained strained. Deep down, she longed for the old days when it was just her and her mother against the world, their bond unchallenged and pure. Life under the same roof with George, her stepdad, was a daily ordeal for Emma. George, with his stern demeanor and cold indifference, made no effort to hide his disdain for her. He would often undermine her opinions, belittle her achievements, and impose strict rules that seemed designed to make her life miserable. The house, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, began to feel like a prison to Emma. Desperate for support, Emma turned to her mother, hoping for understanding and intervention. However, her pleas fell on deaf ears. Her mother, blinded by affection for George and her desire for a harmonious household, refused to see the growing rift. Each time Emma voiced her concerns, her mother would dismiss them as misunderstandings or overreactions. This dismissal hurt Emma deeply, creating a fissure in their once unbreakable bond. George, emboldened by her mother's disbelief, continued his torment. He would find fault in everything Emma did, from her choice of friends to her academic pursuits. His presence loomed large over her daily life, casting a shadow over her once bright and hopeful world. Emma felt increasingly isolated and misunderstood, her voice silenced in her own home. This period was one of profound loneliness and frustration for Emma. The lack of support from her mother, who she had always considered her closest ally, was a bitter pill to swallow. It was a stark reminder that sometimes, even those who love us can be blinded to our pain. Her bad days were coming about which she never thought. Emma's world crumbled the day her mother passed away. The loss was unbearable, a wound that cut deeper than anything she had ever experienced. Her mother had been her confidant, her source of unconditional love and support. In the bleakness of her passing, Emma felt adrift, lost in a sea of grief. To Emma's dismay, her mother's death marked a chilling transformation in George. Without her mother's presence, he shed any facade of civility or restraint. His demeanor turned from cold indifference to outright hostility. The house, once filled with her mother's laughter and love, now echoed with George's harsh words and authoritarian rules. Then came the fateful day that shattered Emma's life completely. In a move that seemed fueled by spite more than anything else, George callously kicked her out of the house. He claimed it was time for her to be independent. but Emma knew it was just an excuse to erase her and her mother's memory from his life. Standing on the doorstep of what was once her home, Emma felt a mix of shock, betrayal, and resolve. This cruel act was a painful catalyst, pushing her to fight back and reclaim her life. In the aftermath of being unjustly ousted, Emma found herself grappling with a new reality. She moved into a modest apartment, its starkness a constant reminder of the warmth and comfort she had lost. But Emma was not one to succumb to despair. She channeled her grief and anger into determination, vowing to reclaim the home that was rightfully hers. Emma started working multiple jobs to support herself. The days were long, and the work was exhausting, but each challenge she overcame fueled her resolve. She remembered her father's teachings about resilience and her mother's example of strength, drawing on these memories to forge ahead. As Emma strategized her next steps, an unexpected ally emerged. Her childhood friend, Mia, had been a constant source of support during these trying times. They were friends since school days. Mia's father, Mr. Thompson, was a retired lawyer with a wealth of experience and a kind heart. When he learned of Emma's plight, he offered his help. Together, they meticulously planned their course of action. Mr. Thompson's legal expertise was invaluable. He helped Emma gather evidence of George's misdeeds, including manipulation of her mother's will and mishandling of the estate. They discovered that George had coerced Emma's mother into leaving the house solely to him, exploiting her vulnerability during her illness. Armed with this evidence, Emma, with Mr. Thompson's guidance, filed a lawsuit to challenge the will's legitimacy and claim her rightful inheritance. The legal battle was grueling, with George using every trick in the book to discredit Emma, but she stood firm, her spirit unbroken. The court day arrived, and Emma presented her case with conviction. The evidence was irrefutable, and her heartfelt testimony resonated with everyone present. The judge, moved by Emma's plight and convinced by the solid evidence, ruled in her favor. The house was to be returned to her, along with a rightful share of her parents' estate. Emma's victory was more than just legal triumph. It was a reclaiming of her heritage and a tribute to her parents' memory. She returned to her childhood home, and George was sent to jail for fraud he committed,